Hi, I'm Wild Bill. I'd like to speak for a little bit about the war that was fought between Germany and the Soviet Union between 1941 and the middle of 1945. This is a significant event in human history as it involves more casualties, more killed, more displaced, more things destroyed than at any other time in recorded history. So that's pretty much worthy of note. With a beginning here from World War I, because the lesson the German strategists learned from that war, from World War I, is as follows. Never fight a two-front war. Hitler, as a strategist, and he wore many hats, some of them quite well, had, however, a definite bias toward acquisition of expansion space for a proposed renewed German feudal empire. Yes, that's right. This view of history and destiny colored his thoughts to the extent that he kept to this desire, despite the threat of a United Kingdom descent upon occupied France after 1940. Indeed, his first expansion was eastward into the hinterlands between his unified Germany and what he thought of as communist Russia. France was forced upon him, in his point of view, by her demonstrable stupidity when she backed the guarantee conferred upon Poland by a worthless piece of paper, and that anachronistic reference is intentional. Considering the threat represented by an armed, mobilizing, and bellicose France and Great Britain in his strategic rear, the French question would have to be answered. This sort of Damocles, poised over his beloved Germany, blinded him to the most elementary and important lesson his generation had learned. Never fight a war on two fronts. Unfortunately, from the German point of view at least, the Wehrmacht and his suppliers, in the form of large public or private concerns, was not prepared for the losses, the urgent need for replacement material, the sudden exponential increase in the demands upon Germany's strategic infrastructure of multi-lane highways, railroad nets, bridges, national radio and telegraphic communications, ships, shipbuilding capacity, the expansion resulting from Hitler's two-front war. Moreover, the prevailing view that Soviet Russia was the same old corrupt doddering system as the one it had replaced was, in historical hindsight, demonstrably incorrect. Nobody in his right mind could possibly have predicted the effect of Stalin-esque draconian martial law upon the fragmented, anachronistic strategic infrastructure, not to mention the varicolored, often tribal people of that nascent nation. Backed by the best wishes and the effects of the deleterious abrasion of public trust in Germany caused by aluminum overcast, also known as the Allied Strategic Bombing Campaign, coupled with their worldwide economic freedoms of trade, their power to impose and enforce sanctions, their crippling boycott powers, Soviet Russia proceeded to suffer the most horrible depredations in modern history inflicted upon her by the ragtag, under-equipped, half-modernized armies of her numerically insignificant foe. The German rat, as we USA citizens might have thought in those halcyon days of Hearst-inspired yellow journalism, was kicking the Russian bear's ass. This effort, despite my definite, stated, heartfelt opposition to the human rights policies pursued by the government behind it, deserves respect from all historians, military planners, and strategists forevermore. And then, as they say in drug rehabilitation centers, reality set in. The top industrialists whose promises Hitler had believed, for they were the ones who'd underwritten his rise to power and whose continued support was essential to the creation of his socialist state, were in the end unable to provide him with the tools he needed to construct his proposed empire in the East. The reasons for the inadequacy were several, but chief among them was the difficulty of obtaining certain raw materials so important to the overall operations, and absolutely irreplaceable if industrial expansion was pending, of German forces everywhere. Nickel, iron, oil, molybdenum, copper, whole mountains of copper. Wow. Wait, fabled holy wolfram, known in the West as tungsten, so critical to the tool and die effort that it is like blood to a dying man. Rubber, quinine, can't fight a war without them. Beset by calamity from above, crippled by calumny within his own family of industrial giants, ravaged by a justifiably indignant Soviet kaiju. A kaiju is a Godzilla-type monster. By the middle of 1944, Der Fuhrer und Reichskanzler had a good reason to feel betrayed. Here's a couple figures just that I think make it worthwhile to see the whole thing in proportion. I'm going to skip the individual production and go right to my conclusions. Germany produced 50,000 armored fighting vehicles, exclusive of armored cars or Schützenpanzerwagons, which means armored personnel carrier, while her enemies produced 235,000 of the same vehicles. 50,000 to 235,000, that's significant. And very important from the point of view of the originally vacillating United States, strategic bombers, which are 4-engine and 2,000-mile mission endurance carrying 2 tons of bombs halfway, 35,000. Plus the United Kingdom, 15,000. So the United States and United Kingdom between them made 50,000 strategic bombers, as I described up above. Germany produced none. This is significant. And far out in the briny blue, lads, a great deal of German manufacturing resources was consumed in construction and maintenance of the U-Waffe, their submarine fleet, so the fatherland could interdict enemy supplies flowing eastward from the United States of America. Recapitulation. So the Western Allies waged a war of supply against Germany by means of bombers overhead and by contesting control of sea lanes vital to merchant shipping of manufactured goods and raw materials from North America and elsewhere to Great Britain, Egypt, and the Soviet Union. Opposite this effort lay the enormous meat grinder of the Eastern Front, where thousands upon thousands of 152mm and 203mm guns pounded most of Central Europe into mud and indifferent rubble, and where millions of soldiers and citizens were atomized into the fetid air everyone left alive shared, and into the earth underneath them when they slept. Conclusion. Without the United States of America and the United Kingdom's involvement, the Soviet Union's life and death struggle with her German and Hungarian, Romanian, Italian, and Slovakian invaders would have been much prolonged, to say the least. Congruently, without the Soviet Union, there could not have been a war against Festum Europa, that's Fortress Europe, by the Western Allies. Specifically, had Hitler's national military not invaded the Rodinate, the Russian motherland, it is possible that today's European Union would have begun then and there, and been much stronger as a result. And a bon mot, a final word. Germany must never fight a two-front war. Thanks for taking time to audit this.